All right, hello everyone, welcome. We are on our very last session time slot of PolitiFest. It's been an amazing week. Thank you for being here. I hope some of you got to catch some of the other sessions, but I am very excited for this panel. Welcome again to PolitiFest. Voice of San Diego has been putting this on as a public affairs summit, and all year long we do reporting that holds public officials accountable, and we do our best to try to inform San Diegans so they are ready for the polls, they are informed citizens, and those folks, our community is who supports us. So thank you for everyone that's supported and donated to Voice of San Diego, that's a member, and for buying your tickets to be here for PolitiFest. That keeps us going all year round. A big special thank you to our sponsors. I believe you saw the PowerPoint moving just before with the slides to see our media sponsors and our whole event sponsors, the Google News Initiative that helped turn this into a virtual event, the University of San Diego, College of Arts and Sciences for underwriting the student tickets so students across San Diego could be here for free. The San Diego Foundation, we are very grateful to them for sponsoring our community conversations. And our other sponsors, Cox Communications, the SDG&E, the Atlantis Group, San Diego Retired Employees Association, the San Diego Democratic Party, Business for Good, and this session's special sponsor, the City Heights Community Development Corporation. So a big thanks to our friends over at the CHCDC. All the sessions are being recorded, so you'll be able to play this back in case you missed any piece of it. And on the Cvent platform, you're able to connect with other attendees and sponsors and the session hosts as well, so, panelists. So please be sure to engage there and on social media. Use that hashtag PolitiFest2020, Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. If you have any questions for the moderator and the panelists, you can drop it in the chat bar here and I'll help field those. And yeah, I'll let you all take it away. Equitable outdoor spaces. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Santos, and I'm going to be this session's moderator today. And as we continue on, I would like to ask, just so that we can get more acquainted, is where was your earliest memory in the outdoors? I would like for you to type in the chat just so that we can all get acquainted. I know that mine was it was on a Silver Strand beach, especially in San Diego. That was my first memory in the outdoors. I was trying to learn how to swim. And as we talk about equitable access and getting outdoors and respecting it, we also should recognize and respect the fact that in San Diego County, we are on ancestral lands. That is Kumeyaay tribe, the Sueño tribe, the Cujulia, and Cupeño. These are their lands. And just recognizing and
Can't hear the speaker.
There you are. I think we got you back.
Okay. Apologies. We all are coming from different internet and Wi-Fi connections. If this continues to happen, I will try and prevent it. But I would like for our panelists to introduce themselves by their name, title, and the organization that they're with.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Rossetti. I am manager of Thrive Outside San Diego at the San Diego Foundation. And I'm just so thrilled to be here and see so many of you joining us today. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Tessa Tinkler, and I'm a senior research associate with the Nonprofit Institute at the University of San Diego.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Les Duncan. I'm the Senior Director of Programs at Outdoor Outreach.
And I want to be able to thank all of you for joining us today. It means a lot to our community. And today's panel and this strip of time is going to be asking and trying to answer why our outdoor access engagement, why is that important? Why does it matter? And I'd like to share a story with you all that I have from my experience as a field instructor with Outdoor Outreach. I think it was my very first trip as an instructor, actually. We were on Silver Strand, and it was a surfing trip. And this little girl, she had to be 8 to 10 years old. She runs up and she's like, I'm ready to go. Like, I can do it. And she's like, she says, I've never surfed before. but I've boogie boarded, so it's like the same thing. And so I'm like, close, but you know, we can all learn something new. And she runs up to me. She tells me, I want you to teach me because you look like my uncle. And I say, okay, I'm I'm glad you're comfortable with that, but you know, something works. And so we move forward to the beach and we start to get in the water. And it's very near freezing. And she gets on the board and I start to push her out. And she tells me I'm getting a little nervous. And she's like, I don't know if I want to do it. And I tell her, you know, this is all your choice. I'm telling you, I have your back. Okay. You know, if anything goes wrong, I'm going to be there. Right. You are not in any danger. I will have your back the whole time. And she looks at me, she says, okay. Like, okay, I feel all right. And so she's like a little jittery, but she gets on the board, this 8-foot board. Keep in mind, this little girl has to be less than half the size. And she's ready to send it. And this wave starts to come in and ask her, like, are you ready? It's your choice. And she says, yeah, I'm going to do it. And so me being the instructor, knowing, oh, she's nervous, she may not jump up immediately, you know, and that's okay. So I tell her, you know, it's okay to just hop up on your knees and ride it back to shore. She says, all right. The wave comes in. I look back. I give her one last chance. She says, I'm ready to send it. And then I send her off. And not 2 seconds later, this girl is hopping up, riding the shore, riding the wave all the way back to shore on her feet. Like, has perfect form. And it was such an amazing experience for not only myself, but she comes back, she's like, that was awesome. And I share that story because she goes into it ready to challenge herself, and she comes back out having this confidence, ready to do it again. And I think that's something that the people of San Diego, the people of the world, could share with each other, is being scared to do something, ready to challenge yourself. And then after succeeding, after sharing that experience, you gain more confidence and more knowledge of yourself. And that is something that in Outdoor Outreach we strive for in every experience, every interaction for our participants. So I don't want to take it the whole time, but that is the story that I would like to share. And so as we continue, if you have any questions as we move forward for some of our panelists or myself, you can go ahead and type them in chat and we'll review them right after the panel. All right. So my first question goes to you, Heather. In 2018, there was a poll of San Diegans found that low-income households visited the beaches and our trails here in California or San Diego much less often than our high-income households in our high-income communities. Roughly a third of our residents from low-income households had not visited a trail or a beach in the previous year, compared to only 5% of higher-income households. And Heather, I just was wondering if you could tell us what you had learned about these inequities in park access in the Parks for Everyone report.
Yes, thank you so much for bringing that question to me. And I would first like to start with a photo. So please bear with me while I start my slideshow. Okay, pictured here is a family trying to pass a trail in Borderfield State Park last December. Having not seen their family members from Mexico in over 15 years, they were determined to reach Friendship Park. As the vehicle road was closed due to flooding, they had to walk 1.8 miles each way and push their small children in strollers through mud and water contaminated with the runoff from the cross-border flows of the Tijuana estuary. Oftentimes, officials have closed the entire park to the public, including pedestrians, due to the conditions of the foot trails. Public safety remains a leading barrier to parks and green spaces. Risk factors might include poor trail conditions and flooding, as shown above. Why does this matter? Why is access to parks and green space so important? Parks not only improve the quality of life and physical health, but provide venues to bring people together across social, economic, and racial divides to build a more resilient, socially connected community. Let's take a step back. A decade after the San Diego Foundation's 2010 Parks for Everyone report illuminated disparities in available green space, it remains true that many local communities lack critical access to outdoor space. Pictured here is an updated map in the 2020 Parks for Everyone report. The map shows that though the region is rich in green space, many San Diegans still lack equitable access to parks and nature. The communities that suffer the greatest inequalities are those with higher concentration of low-income households, communities with greater racial and ethnic diversity, and higher rates of COVID-19 infections. There's a long history of factors that contribute to these inequalities, such as the practice of redlining, which labeled minority communities as high risk for mortgage loans. Why do these inequalities persist even today? In the 2020 Parks for Everyone report, we learn about equity barriers. Equity barriers are obstacles that hinder a person's ability to access green space and parks in San Diego County. Earlier, we saw an example of one of the safety barriers. Other obstacles include walkability, transportation, cultural inclusion, and fees, permits, and expenses. These barriers are not limited to the border area. We find these same issues in our own neighborhoods. For example, there are over 150 canyons throughout urban San Diego, and yet only a small portion are accessible. Pictured here is a before and after photo of Olivia Canyon in City Heights, transformed by the local organization San Diego Canyonlands. In the first photo, the canyon was overrun by invasive species and not accessible to residents. Next, let's consider transportation. Without access to a vehicle or nearby public transit stops, many families are unable to visit parks, beaches, or open spaces. As demonstrated by Google Maps, a trip from El Cajon to Ocean Beach that would take 20 to 25 minutes by car can take up to 2 hours on public transit. And why is this important? We know that access to parks is tied to well-being. Transportation is tied to access to parks, which is tied to equity and well-being. It's all connected. It's just one more reason why we need better transportation in our community. In response to the original Parks for Everyone report findings, a movement began to emerge to connect both youth and diverse populations to experience the outdoors in a more meaningful way. One such initiative is the Thrive Outside San Diego. Convened in 2019 by the Outdoor Foundation, Thrive Outside San Diego is working to improve equitable access to green space through individual and systems level change. Private philanthropy has stepped in with initiatives like Thrive Outside, but we are missing a champion in public office to drive systems level change.
Thank you for sharing that. And something that you were touching heavily on was transportation, and you mentioned it a few times. And so I would like to ask, because transportation is such a barrier for these residents, who don't have a car, don't live near public transportation, and after hours, there are a couple public health interns after hours who have done surveys asking, and that is something that's still like an issue. And
yes.
So what about those who can't access public transit, or maybe they just can't afford it?
Yes.
For them.
Great question. There is something called a Youth Opportunity Pass, which is a no-cost transit pass for youth 24 and under. And programs like this have been very successful in other cities. Recently, both Sacramento and LA have passed a no-cost pass for students. And locally, the organization Mid-City Can ran a successful Youth Opportunity Pass pilot program a few years ago. So that's definitely one thing that we can consider here locally in San Diego.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's a
Thank you.
bit of information. So something you also had mentioned, Heather, is Thrive Outside, and which is bringing a coalition of partners to improve equitable access to the outdoors. So as a part of this nonprofit institute, they took the initiative to understand more of what's happening in our county in San Diego, and it implemented a research project, and that gave us great community-based evidence. And Tessa, I would like to ask you, what does that research tell us?
Yeah, thank you. Let me, I'm going to share a slide and give you all some information about our research. So as Heather explained, there are certain regions in San Diego that have less access to the outdoors, and this has been historically the case for a long time. And so the Thrive Outside Network decided to start by focusing on one of these regions, which is South San Diego and Supervisorial District 1. You can see here, kind of what area that includes. And in order to guide Thrive Outside's future activities, the Thrive Outside Steering Committee wanted to have, an understanding of what opportunities currently exist on a programmatic level for youth and families to access the outdoors. And so this was,
I don't want to interrupt your flow, but I can't see the map that you're talking about. I don't know if you shared your screen yet. Yeah, I'd just love to see it just so that we can have a visual.
Absolutely. Thank you.
No, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt your flow.
Tessa, is it working? You want me to try on my end?
No, I think I got it.
All right.
Is it up now?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay, so let me start the presentation again. Everyone sees it? Okay, great. So here's the map. Hadn't gotten very far yet. So this is the general area of Supervisor District 1. And like I was saying, we wanted to better understand what opportunities currently exist, and so that we could identify, both the assets in the community and then also some of the gaps that exist in being able to access the outdoors. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Supervisorial District 1 before I tell you what we found. So in this district, residents have a 15% lower median income than San Diego County overall. It's predominantly Latinx, and it's also predominantly a younger population. There are more youth under 18 that live in Supervisorial District 1. The other reason that Thrive Outside was interested in focusing on this area is there are a number of nature preserves, beaches, and parks in the district, and we wanted to understand if youth and families have ways of accessing this nearby nature. So what we did is we conducted a survey of the organizations and programs that are currently operating in this district and working with youth and families. So we surveyed 33 organizations, which represents 65 programs, and we think this was a pretty good snapshot of the work that was going on in this area in November through January of last year. So obviously this was pre-COVID, which changes a lot of what's going on right now there. Just to give you guys a sense, when we did the survey, it was of organizations, it was a mix of nonprofits, government, and schools, predominantly nonprofits, but all of which, collaborate together with government agencies and schools. So we wanted to know who is participating in outdoor programs. And we found that an estimated 50,000 youth have been involved in these programs over this 12-month period. And the majority of them are elementary age children. So 71% of those that are involved in these outdoor programs are elementary, with middle and high school being far fewer. We also wanted to find out when and how often these programs, the youth are engaging in these programs. And we found that youth were predominantly spending time outdoors during the school day. Just want to make sure this is the right slide. And for short periods of time. So this is obviously particularly relevant right now because schools are not happening in person for most. And there's also, there's not field trips going on. So this means a lot of students who did have this opportunity in the past do not right now. And you can see here just that the amount of time is a pretty short period of time because a lot of these programs are happening during the school day. And then we asked, what types of outdoor activities are youth participating in? And we found, there was a big variety, but most programs are predominantly focusing on more structured learning activities outdoors. 83% are offering natural history or environmental education programs. The next highest was environmental stewardship. So it makes sense that these were more structured because, as I said, they're happening during the school day. So there's a little bit less free play, kind of that connection to nature, and more programming happening. So, just in summary, we found that younger kids, elementary school age, are engaged in pretty structured outdoor activities during the school day for relatively short periods at a time. And, as I said, the majority of these are happening during the school day, which when schools are in operation, there's a lot of benefits to that because it kind of alleviates some of those barriers that Heather brought up. It overcomes financial and transportation barriers to get kids outside. The gaps that we found, especially now, is because so many of these were happening during the school day, their students are not able to participate right now. So there's a lot less of access for youth in this district. Children, like I said, children also have few opportunities to spend time outdoors in more unstructured activities that kind of allow for that exploration. And middle and high school have far fewer opportunities. And then there were also, there were some, but there were fewer programs that involved families as well.
Oh, okay. So you mentioned that, because they're during the school day, there's less free play. There's not as much connection to nature, like that appreciation that could be there. And given the pandemic, I'm wondering, because schools being so heavily transferred through online, could there be a bridge or some type of like cooperation between these programs that take the kids outdoors and them still being able to learn, like currently?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's certainly a possibility, with a number of truly logistical challenges. But I think that what we found, not just in South San Diego, but with our work in general with nonprofits, there's so many amazing organizations and programs that are working to get kids outdoors. I mean, this just in South San Diego, I mentioned there were 65 programs, and those are just the ones we surveyed. There's even more than that, and that's just in that region. So there's a lot of work that can happen. And these organizations have been working with schools for years. So that partnership already exists. I think it's just going to take schools and organizations and government agencies to become really creative in figuring out how that can happen. The good news is schools, education is being encouraged to move outdoors. So it seems like an opportunity, but I acknowledge it is a challenge.
Yeah, of course. There's always going to be like some setbacks whenever we try something new, right? Creative solutions. And being a part now of one of these programs with Outdoor Outreach, Les, you and I have worked relatively closely together at Outdoor Outreach, and you are in charge of overseeing the development of the youth programs that have helped increase, this access for the communities that we are talking about today. And from, this grassroots level, how has Outdoor Outreach worked and is continued to working to address these barriers to outdoor access?
Absolutely, and thank you, Santos. Let me go ahead and pull up a slide here as well. Wasn't it? All right, hopefully you can see it now. So a little bit about Outdoor Outreach. Outdoor Outreach is one of those nonprofits that Tessa was referencing here in San Diego. We've been here for over 20 years, really introducing youth to the transformative power of the outdoors through several partnerships with school and community-based organizations and government agencies as well. And we believe in the resilience building, not only the health benefits of the outdoors, but also the mental health and resilience building effects of the outdoors as well. So Outdoor Outreach primarily serves youth ages 11 to 25, creating introductory experiences to spaces that they may not have had access to. So thinking about Southeast San Diego, where we're located, so many of the youth that live in our community have never been to the beach before, even though they live a 10 to 15-minute drive away from the beach, or they've never been to their favorite trail, they've never gone rock climbing before. And so through outdoor outreach, we serve as a catalyst or a vehicle to introduce youth to new possibilities in the outdoors, while also connecting them with positive, supportive peers and mentors and instructors that really help to build their confidence, their self-efficacy, their social skills, and really just help them to achieve joy through the outdoors. So these are some of the activities that we provide at Outdoor Outreach. So from mountain biking to surfing to rock climbing to kayaking, again, we provide a wide range of activities, but our focus is that through these activities, youth have the opportunity to overcome some of the challenges in kind of a micro environment that they might experience, and apply some of those skills, some of those problem solving skills or collaborative skills, social skills, to other areas of their life as well. This map just kind of shows a quick picture of some of the areas where we do program. And it ranges from a wide range of different parks and lands, from city parks to state parks, all the way up to Joshua Tree National Park, rock climbing, overnight trips up there, or snowboarding up in Big Bear or even Mammoth. But again, the focus here is kind of twofold. It's to create access, and I'll talk a little bit about both, that concept of access, physical access and functional access, but also importantly to build resilience in youth. And I'll share a little bit further in the presentation about some examples of how that resilience is built. So talking a little bit about physical access and functional access, Heather had referenced the Parks for Everyone report that outlines kind of what these concepts are. It's one thing to say, well, all youth in San Diego have access to the beach. They're able to walk onto the beach, or all youth have access to a park. But when we talk about some of the physical access challenges, as we've talked about previously, many of our youth either lack transportation to get there, or once they get there, there are steep permit fees or parking fees in order to be able to use those spaces. But then there's also functional access issues as well that I want to bring up as well, such as the safety of a park. It's one thing to say, there's a park in this neighborhood, but if the community is looking at that park as not the place that they would go to have a family picnic or to take their young one because of crime issues or whatnot in that park or in that area, or if a youth or individual doesn't see themselves in some of these outdoor spaces. So thinking about surfing or rock climbing or some of the activities that we provide at Outdoor Outreach, these are all activities that I myself growing up, never really saw myself as being a part of. And so that becomes also a functional access issue, is if our youth don't see themselves as being a part of those environments, then they don't recreate there. Now, why is this an issue? As we talked a little bit about throughout this presentation, we know that the outdoors has this incredible health healing effect. And so really when we look at outdoor inequities or equity issues in the outdoors, we're looking at health equity issues as well. And then furthermore, taking it kind of a step further as well, when we look at the environmental justice movement, or when we look at the conservation movement and the need to protect land, it has to first start with this relationship that's developed with the place, with the places that we're really asking communities to conserve and to protect. And so access to these outdoor spaces is so key and again, improving the health, the wellness, the resilience of communities, as well as protecting these lands and spaces and really contributing to the resilience of our lands and outdoor spaces as well.
Yeah, thank you, Les, for sharing. We have some public health interns at Outdoor Outreach who I have the pleasure of speaking with, and they, with their the interviews that they've done and the questions they asked to the youth, spoke true to many of the things you have mentioned, and one being namely, that feeling of not seeing yourself in the outdoors. And so, you mentioned that Outdoor Outreach not only
Santos,
I think we lost you.
Yep.
Can you hear me okay? Yep. This is when it pops up. Your connection is unstable. We all know the feeling. Take it 2 seconds.
Can you hear me again now?
Perfect.
Better, yeah. Talk a little bit louder if you could, please.
Yes, of course. So I don't know where I left off, but I was saying Outdoor Outreach not only is working to increase the access, but it's also improving that health and the mental health of our youth. And so you mentioned that Outdoor Outreach does do that. I was wondering if you could speak to some of the ways that we have done, that we have tried to.
Absolutely. So Outdoor Outreach, through a number of partnerships, has really demonstrated the health and well-being effects. So not only are we hearing it from our youth that they're experiencing this resilience through the outdoors, but we're also seeing it through many of the surveys that we're doing on our programs as well. So one example of a partnership that we've entered into that really demonstrates the resilience and mental health benefits of the outdoors is a partnership that we developed with Rady's Children's Hospital. And actually 10 minutes before this session, I actually came back from a program with Rady's Children's Hospital. And actually, let me share a story just from that session. As we were gearing up and laying out all of the bikes on the lawn over at Crown Point for a mountain biking program or biking kind of along Mission Bay, one of the youth that was participating, a young lady that was participating in the program, pulled up in a van with her mom, and she was nervous. She was hesitant to come out of the car. See, many of the youth that we're working with at Rady's Children's Hospital are youth in their mental health outpatient unit and are struggling with anxiety, depression, panic attacks, suicidality, and other forms of mental illness. And so many of the youth kind of come into this program very guarded, very unsure, very nervous. And so, after a few of our instructors went over, Alexis went over and really welcomed her in, within 5 to 10 minutes of being on the program, she completely opened up. She connected with another one of the participants in their love and joy of Harry Potter. She began to share a little bit about how when she was younger, she had a bike, but it was stolen. And so she's since kind of given up on biking. But then she picked up a bike, she looked at it, she said, all right, I'm gonna give this a try. And so for the first time in years, she picked up that bike and started riding. All of the other kids that were on the program, they were cheering her on. And so we saw that joy that came from really stepping outside of her comfort zone and trying something new in these outdoor spaces. That's what I mean when I say that the outdoors is incredibly powerful in building resilience. What we've seen through Rady's programs that we've ran in the past is that that youth report at the end of the program feeling a greater sense of confidence, of self-esteem, of hope, and then overall resilience. And what we've also seen, and is reported by many of the social workers and therapists at Rady's, is an actual reduction in patient symptomology as a result of of these programs. And so that's one of the many examples of how not only the outdoors, but by creating community in these outdoor spaces can really contribute meaningfully to the health, well-being, and resilience of youth. A few other partnerships, and then you know, I think we should definitely move on to the next question as well. We've also partnered with San Diego County Probation, working as one of just a few providers that are actually able to bring youth off-site from probation and introduce youth to outdoor spaces that many of these youth haven't been to before. And so I remember one of our first rock climbing programs with probation, youth hiking in to Dixon Lake and seeing this huge rock wall ahead of them, and all of them saying, "Nah, there's no way that we'll ever do it." Well, 4 of the 5 youth that were there that day did it. One attempted, and he backed out and said, "Nah, I'm not going to do it." But then he forced me to get up on the rock climbing wall. And what we did instead was we said, "All right, well, I'll let you belay me." And so what we did there was we also facilitated a lesson in the power of trust. And for youth that have often been in systems or communities where there's this lack of trust, or people around them haven't trusted them before, really being able to instill some of that through these powerful outdoor engagement experiences can really be transformative and can really change and shift the confidence of a youth. And so those are a few of the examples of what we mean when we say that the outdoors can truly, and access, you know, functional and physical access to the outdoors can really improve the health and well-being of youth.
Thank you. No, in my own personal experience, being on many of those partnerships, those trips, oftentimes it's not just the youth that learns, it is also our instructors, because we go into it thinking, okay, we're trying to create this authentic interaction, and really the youth bring such energy, such passion into it that, you know, you yourself take a step back and like, wow, like I need to take a couple pages from their book. It's truly a transformative experience. And so we've talked about the effect that it has. And from a research perspective, Tessa, I wanted to ask you, you know, why is it important? So we've talked about like firsthand experiences, but from a research perspective, Tessa, why is it important to be in the outdoors? Oh, Tessa,
I'm having some trouble with transitions today. Okay, I am no longer muted. Thank you for the question. You know, there's been a lot of research done on, you know, what is the impact of spending time outdoors. And this, you know, a lot of this research is actually quite old, because we've known for a long time how important it is that we are connected to the outdoors. But I can tell you a few like stats that are out there. These are based on empirical studies that have been done. Some of them kind of a traditional experimental design. And they've shown, like, one example of a study is that immersion in nature for 4 days a week can increase performance on creativity and problem solving by 50%. So when we're talking about, you know, schools and academics, there's certainly a reason for schools to take this seriously. Additionally, walking in nature can be used as a method to reduce stress and decrease the risk of psychological stress-related diseases. You know, also based on studies like Les, you had spoken about some of the work that you've been doing with Rady Children's Hospital, and the early evidence shows that this is actually having, you know, a true health impact for the participants. Exposure, another one, exposure to outdoor blue spaces. So this one's kind of interesting. We specifically looked at blue spaces, meaning water, you know, lakes, rivers, seas, etc., can have a positive impact on mental health, physical health, and well-being. So there's really, you know, there's a lot of evidence that this matters.
Thank you. for sharing. It's kind of crazy because, we say it's old, but then, we still haven't, we as a people, not as like our community, but not everyone has accepted that, and that it's so important to all of us. And we've talked about why it's important, and we talked about the effects that it has. Another question I'd like to put out to you is, to Les and Heather, how can we get involved? Whoever would like to go first. Heather, I feel like you're so
Hi.
eager.
Yeah, so I briefly mentioned Thrive Outside San Diego earlier, and for those nonprofits, the Thrive Outside is a network of nonprofits working together to increase equitable access to the outdoors for all San Diegans. And so there are a number of ways that if there are any nonprofits on the call that aren't already involved, we have a listserv of over 100 organizations working together on capacity building, trainings, workshops, and educational opportunities. So I would love to bring in as many as possible. So reaching out to me is one way that you can get involved, and I'll let speak to more like on the individual level.
Absolutely. And so what I would say also in terms of getting involved on an individual level, many of you are here as a part of PolitiFest, really concerned about, this upcoming election and what are some of the priorities that we need to be holding our elected officials accountable for. And so to that end, one of the things that we've been working closely with several of the partners of the Thrive Initiative, the Choice Creek Coalition, the Community Budget Alliance has been really an emphasis on park development throughout San Diego, and especially in communities that need it, that need parks the most, or that need safe, functional parks as well. And so I think of a few examples of some of the work that we've done with the Community Budget Alliance over this past year. Emerald Hills Neighborhood Park was a key focus, a park that had really lacked any significant investment over the past 50 years. And as a result of our efforts through the Community Budget Alliance and really several partners coming together to address that issue, there was $400,000 that was allocated by the City Council to improve those parks. What we've seen though is, since that allocation last year, there hasn't been tremendous movement in actually making, in the redesign process, or actually making significant improvements on the park. And so that is an area of advocacy that we're continuing to focus on. We're also looking at increasing park development in Barrio Logan as well. And so I'd refer you to the City Parks Master Plan that really gives an overview of many of the park's needs and priorities. And as a part of the City Parks Master Plan as well, it really seeks to address several of the issues of equity by pooling together development fees and really directing them to support parks in high need neighborhoods based on the Climate Equity Index. So those are some key areas of advocacy. Both mayoral candidates in a recent mayoral candidate forum had demonstrated their commitment to parks and to increasing park access, but really making sure to hold our elected officials accountable for those commitments that are made is key. I think the second political action or focus area that we would really emphasize as well is permitting. This has been a conversation that we've been having both on a state level as well as on a city level, looking at how community-based organizations separate from for-profit concessionaires could really benefit from a more streamlined permitting process that doesn't charge, exorbitant fees to nonprofits or community groups that are really working to increase that access or that equity in the outdoors. And so that's been another area, another action area that we've been working in as well to, again, improve and increase both physical and functional access to the outdoors.
Thank you. I think, I think putting pressure on our elected officials for what they've promised and,
Yeah.
have allocated is really, really strong. And so with our last 10 minutes left, I'd like to allow the audience to send us questions through the chat so that we can have our panelists answer. And we already have a couple. What about equitable access to the coast via public transit is the question. And I would like to put that out to any one of us if we have any answers for that. Is there something specifically designed for that? Are there ways that we can increase public transit to the coast? Heather, do you have a response to that maybe?
Well, I mentioned earlier the Youth Opportunity Pass. That is one way that we can get folks that aren't able to, or at least youth that aren't able to afford public transit now. And I think that we just encourage city officials that we really need better transportation options across the board. As I showed earlier, that a trip from El Cajon to Ocean Beach that really should just take 20 to 25 minutes it can take up to 2 hours on public transit. So we need a better solution there. And something that I know that our nonprofit partners have done as part of their programming with youth is providing transportation as part of their program. So they're not leaving it up to youth and families to try and figure it out on their own. They have a dedicated amount of funding that they're putting towards making sure that they have transportation that they can provide to the youth in their program. So yeah, that's what I would.
Yeah.
If I could also, and kind of in the spirit of generating conversation as well, I want to acknowledge one of our partners on the call, Randy Torres Van Vleck, who's with the City Heights CDC. He's been a tremendous partner, and CHCDC has been a tremendous partner in really increasing access to transportation. So wanted to pull you in also with your permission to add some feedback to this question.
Yeah, thanks so much, Les. I really appreciate that opportunity. Great question. Glad to hear it come up. Some of the big ways is that Sandag is currently working on their 5 Big Moves, a regional plan. Sorry, it's a siren here. And it's important to have the metric in there that can really measure accessibility to the coast via transit. So Sandag currently measures that now in their regional plan, but that data shows that Black and Brown communities and low-income communities as well have less access to the coast via transit. So we want to make sure that they're continuing to measure that. And also, I think looking at Rapid Lines, MTS was looking at a bus to the beach program, and at Elevate San Diego, which was going to go to voters this November. Unfortunately, it's not moving forward. But that, similar to the Youth Opportunity Pass, the plan there was for everyone 18 and under. They would be able to get free transit. And calling someone else, and Maria Cortez was on the call here. She led the advocacy for that. Last thing I'll say is just we're looking at active transportation and access as well in partnership with Outdoor Outreach and the Choice Creek Coalition. So those walking paths, bike paths along the Choice Creek, for example, make it safe and easy to walk and get bike to and from the beach. So thanks, Les, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Randy, for answering. That was really cool. So we don't have very much time left, but I would like to, get a couple of these questions out. And so we talked about how our organizations can get involved. We talked about how, individuals can. And another part of that is how can we get our community leaders and our communities to take action and advocate for our access? Anyone? Let's go ahead.
I can pop in on that. So I think one of the things that I often emphasize and that we talk about also with our youth, our young leaders through our leadership program as well, is the importance of ongoing advocacy. So it's one action step to show up to the polls in November or to vote in advance. Make sure to vote. But it's another thing to continue to hold our elected officials accountable, to show up to city budget hearings, and make sure that your priorities and your community's priorities are a part and reflected in the budget as well. And so there's several ways to engage in that. I mentioned a few of the coalitions that I'm sure would welcome with open arms: the Choice Creek Coalition, the Community Budget Alliance. But in terms of specific actionable next steps or events that you could participate in, several groups throughout San Diego are coming together, including the Bike Coalition, Outdoor Outreach, and several other biking groups or bike-focused groups are coming together actually on October 18th. As many of you may have been a part, we hosted the Pedal for Justice event a few months back to really honor George Floyd, to bring awareness to the Black Lives Matter movement, and also to talk about the injustices that exist in environmental access, environmental and transportation equity, and so forth. And so we're going to be doing a similar event on October 18th to again promote racial justice, environmental justice, all of which are very much interconnected. And so we invite you out to be a part of that. So we'd invite you to search for Pedal for Justice on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, as well as on its webpage. Sorry, I don't have it on me to drop in the chat. But we invite you out on October 18th to be a part of that event as well.
Thank you, Les. A couple final questions. There was the fact that we mentioned our mayor, our city council members. Actually, someone in the chat said, in other words, annoy our council member in order to, get our results. And so are there any other offices in San Diego that hold power? Oh, I almost missed it. Hold power and make decisions that can address some of the barriers to our outdoor spaces? So in case my question, this will be our last question, but are there any other offices that can advocate and take action for our outdoor spaces in order to get, more access?
Yeah, so definitely holding our city councils accountable. I'm seeing a few folks dropping in the chat as well. Sandag, who have invested in many ways, but continuing to hold them accountable for the racial justice, the environmental justice that we're really pushing for. I'd also say City Parks and Rec, and we've been in conversations with them to really provide a more equitable permitting process and to collaborate, most importantly, to collaborate with community-based organizations in the development of of programs for the community as well. And so those would be a few groups. The Office of Child and Youth Success, which has been an ongoing effort supported by the Community Budget Alliance, and Courtney would love to invite you on as well to share a bit more about that.
Oh dang, Les is calling me out here. I'm like in the middle of eating soup. And thanks to Mackenzie, we had a quick chat about how important, yes, advocacy, especially representation of youth voice in City Hall and our local government, state government, federal government really is. I'm with the YMCA, and with Outdoor Outreach and other partners, we're really trying to drive the importance of an Office of Child and Youth Success for the city of San Diego. It's an opportune time, and the gaps in services for children, youth, and their families has never been more obvious and evident as it is now during the COVID-19 pandemic. So working with upstream prevention techniques and alignment would certainly help with things like childcare, rental relief, access to the outdoors. So really hoping that we have some candidates who put actions behind their words, because we do have some support, more support than we've had in a number of years. So thanks, Les, for the opportunity to jump on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Courtney, for that information. Unfortunately, we're coming to the close of our time slot here. I want to thank everyone for coming out and listening and being a part of this conversation. It's very important, and remembering that our votes matter, and they are very important, and we need to use them wisely. So thank you all for coming out and listening to our conversation.
Yes, thank you all for being here for PolitiFest 2020. We are officially wrapped up, but look out for our survey and follow-up information. And again, a big thank you to the City Heights CDC for sponsoring this session. We really appreciate it. Take care, everyone, and have a great rest of your weekend.